I think I'm live. This is kind of what happens when I skip a couple of Facebook live Saturdays and then I am live and I'm not sure I'm live. I am live. I'm sure I'm live now. Okay, good morning, my beautiful friends, my tribe, whoever is here this morning to hear my reflections about choosing growth and why we should choose growth over comfort. I'm so excited to share some of my reflections with you because it's been very real for me, and I always say that my life has become my teacher and it's what I teach. My life brings me the lessons that I teach, and from my discussions and my reflections with my dear ones, often these topics evolve that I come up with. And today's topic came from a discussion I had with a dear friend a couple of weeks ago. And she was telling me how much she loves food. And she just said, I think about food during the day. I think about what am I going to cook? What am I going to go shopping for? It's like food just consumes me and it brings me so much joy and so much pleasure. And I said to her, so what's the problem? Why is this an issue? And she said, well, because I'm getting fat, number one. My clothes don't fit. And my doctor told me my sugar levels and my cholesterol was like way too high. I need to make some changes. And I don't want to. It's like, oh no, why? Why must I give up my one pleasure in life? And I really felt for her because I thought, yeah, this brain of ours, it really tricks us. It has this algorithm of it wants to avoid pain and seek pleasure and use the least energy to do it. That's kind of the algorithm on the one hand. And then when we buy into these pleasures and into the comforts and what helps us feel good, then it starts to decay. And then we get problems, and then we've got to change. So on the one hand, the more comfortable we get, the more uncomfortable we are. And our brain is saying, no, we need to evolve here, we need to change something up here. And what is so interesting for me is that all our neurochemicals, our neurotransmitters are actually created in the brain from discomfort, from growth, from putting ourselves out there, and from changing and putting changes in place. So as I was talking to you about my friend, I was also just thinking about my own journey with alcohol. And maybe many of you that are here this morning are struggling with this, that alcohol brings you pleasure, alcohol relaxes you, alcohol is your one thing that you look forward to in the day, like I used to. My life had shrunk though. It shrank into that the only pleasure and desire I was able to create in my life was for alcohol. And eventually my health, like with my friend and my food, my health started to really show up in a way that it was saying, my body was saying, hey, enough, we can't do this anymore. My close ones, my loved ones were saying, no, you've got to change something is not working here. And I used to always lament that how can something that feels so good be so bad for me? And like I said, that's the trick of the brain. So unless we're growing, unless we're getting uncomfortable, we're always going to get to a place of discontentment or of shrinkage, of aging, of decay. A brain that's not growing, if we're not evolving, if we're continually just doing the same thing, having Groundhog Day, not putting ourselves out there, eventually what happens is that the brain starts to shrink. Our life starts to shrink, and then we die. And when we want to reflect back on our life and what we are proud of, and I don't want to be saying to myself, I always quit on myself when things got hard. So it is also about really starting to strengthen the choice muscle. Knowing that we always have a choice. And right now, right today, you have choices in your hands. Choices that your future self really wishes that you are going to take on board today. And I want to just share a story that I heard again, which I love because it is so much about our growth and what stands in our way. And it comes from the old indigenous people. It's an old indigenous tale about a time when we as humans were immortal. And we were able to be immortal, very much like snakes and crabs. We could shed our skin, and then we could renew. And then there was a time where the chiefess of this tribe, Altamirana, was looking into her reflection and seeing that she was getting older and that it was time for her to change her skin. So she walked down to the river and she did a whole ceremony around the shedding of the old skin. And she shed her old skin and walked towards the village with her new skin renewed, but her old wise soul still there. And then she just glanced behind her and she saw on the driftwood there was her skin. And she thought nothing more of it. And she got back into the village and saw her daughter. And her daughter didn't recognize her. And she said, "It's me, it's your mother." And her daughter said, "You don't look like my mother. You're not my mother. I want my mother." And her daughter got very anxious and went into despair and started crying for her mother. And Altamirana, to appease her daughter, went back to the river and she put on her old skin. And the story goes that is the day that we lost our ability to be immortal. So how many times don't we do that? Just think about your life. How many times when we get discouraged, when we get anxious, or when people around us are saying, "Why are you not drinking anymore?" do we put on our old skin and we go back into our old behaviors and patterns? And what happens? We go into our comfort eating, and what happens? We lose our immortality. We lose our aliveness, and we put on this cover and we hide and we shrink alive. But if we are able to have the courage to shed the skin and to look at life going forward from here now, the journey of ditching the drink can be so amazing. It can either be nothing is changing, or this is too uncomfortable and we put on our old skins, or we can say, "What now? Now I have so much more time. I've ditched the drink. I learned to be with my uncomfortable emotions while I was doing that. I learned a way to not buffer and not to hide behind alcohol. But now here I am. What's next for this brain? Is this all there is?" And often it's in this time that we start asking ourselves, so what is my purpose? I've got this time. I'm reading a lot. I'm educating myself. I'm consuming a lot. So we might find ourselves, as I did, where I was reading a lot of books, self-help books. I was listening to a lot of Kutlit. I started dancing. I started bringing in new tools, and I started feeling an aliveness, and then saying to myself, what next? And what next is to start from where you are and to set yourself goals. Why? Because we're starting to feel uncomfortable again. And I also want to share the story about where we now become like an apprentice. I always said I became an apprentice of my life. And I started to feel my feelings. I was often uncomfortable. During the journey of ditching the drink, or during the journey of when we start a new goal, we often get very, we complain, this is so hard. I mean, I talk about that all the time, how I said to my coach, but this is so hard. And so I want to offer you another story here that I find quite delightful, which comes from the ancient Vedas in India, where they talk about this mentor and his apprentice. And the mentor was getting so annoyed with his apprentice because his apprentice was always complaining and always moaning about the hardship and how difficult things were. And maybe you find yourself right there in your life right now, where things just seem hard. So the apprentice said, the mentor said to the apprentice, go grab a handful of salt. And so the apprentice went like moaning, got a handful of salt, and then the mentor gave him a glass of water, and he said, put the salt in the water. And the apprentice did that. And then the mentor said, now drink it. No? The apprentice was a bit horrified, but he took a sip and he said, oh, this is disgusting, I can't drink this. And the mentor said to him, okay, well now come with me to the lake. And they went to this beautiful big lake. And the apprentice said, here's another handful of salt, put it in the lake, which the apprentice then did. And then the mentor said, now drink from this lake. And when he drank from this lake, he couldn't taste the salt. And I love that story because what it shows us is that if we concentrate and we attach to our heart and how difficult things are, we are like that glass with the salt. But if we dilute it and we become the lake, then we hardly taste the hard. So how do we do that? In our workshops, we talk about our toolbox. The lake is our toolbox. Our toolbox, the tools that we can use to dilute the salt and the concentrated salt in the water. Tools like calling a friend, sending a WhatsApp, or doing something kind for somebody that we don't know, or doing something kind for somebody that we love. Learning a new skill, learning to dance, or playing music that really opens our hearts and inspires us. We need to get our toolboxes, like that we can go to, going for a walk, meditating, finding a place where we can be and become intimate with ourselves. And when we feel our feelings and we allow for the feelings, I believe in the feelings a lot, and I feel that, and I always say we need to feel to heal. But more than that, we need to feel to connect back to our inner spirit, to our soul. That's where we create our deep inner awareness, when we allow ourselves to feel. So much of what we do about being comfortable and avoiding pain is not to feel the uncomfortable emotions. So we eat them away, we drink them away. Which is why it's so important to keep putting in a bit of heart, to keep growing, to keep challenging ourselves as we move forward. And the interesting part is that in that way we start finding who we are. We start creating this beautiful self-awareness within ourselves. It's like see yourself as training for your purpose. Every day your life is a lesson. The little goals that you set yourself are the lessons. There's another beautiful story, and I know I'm full of stories today because I love stories. I learn from stories. I take the lessons from them. And so the other story I want to share is about a cyclist. And let's say he was training for the Tour de France, and he had this vision to win it. And he put all this effort in, and he trained, and he got his diet right. And you can just see yourself now, you've got a goal, you've got a 90-day goal. I would say start with a 90-day goal of a new habit or a new skill you want to bring in. And he was saying to himself, I'm going to cycle, I'm going to win the Tour de France. It was his goal, it was his lifelong goal. And then he entered and he rode in the race. And he flew over the hills, down the hills, up the hills. He just flew. And he was way ahead of everybody else. And the next moment, this huge, big blue heron came swooping down from the sky onto his handlebars, and he stopped. and he straddled his bike and he just stopped. And many years later, when he was sitting on his porch, a journalist said to him, "How did it feel that day when this blue heron came and you lost the race?" And he might have said, "You know what, I didn't lose the race. I left the race." So what is the lesson for me in that story? So often we set ourselves goals, and then if we don't make them, we feel like failures, or we don't try again. Or we set ourselves goals and we have this vision of what this goal is going to give us. And if we don't have that vision and we don't have that goal, then often we would not go in the race. That cyclist, if he didn't have the goal to win the race, he might never have even started the training. But it was in the training and in the becoming that he was able to leave the race and see what it was actually all really about, what the benefits were, not in the winning. So for us, often the benefits are not in achieving all our goals. Imagine if we always just got exactly what we wanted all the time. That would make us miserable. Where would be the fun in that? We need a bit of effort. It's in the effort and in the overcoming that we feel our aliveness. So what is I'm going to offer you today from that story and from my talk here is to set yourself a goal. So if your goal right now is that you're on the 90-day or the 66-day spring challenge, you want to ditch the drink, then go all in. Go all in with the mindset of, I'm going to feel my feelings, I'm going to get uncomfortable, I've got my toolbox, and when I get to my goal, what's the next step? So it's always about, I grow, I enjoy, I grow, I enjoy. We continually stretching ourselves, because when we are putting ourselves out there, that is where we take the lessons. That's where we learn about what we are made of, how we can do hard, what is holding us back. And so when you're looking for your purpose, I always say start with exactly where you are and what is right here, right now for you. So right here, right now for you, it could be I'm ditching the drink. And in that journey, when I think about the journey of ditching the drink and staying sober and going on the sobriety path, the benefit isn't that I'm no longer drinking alcohol. The benefit is that I've learned not to prefer not to have it, that I've no more desire for it, but I've been able to create desire for other pleasures in my life, pleasures that don't have negative consequences. I've learned to really strengthen my choice muscle. I've learned to overcome my primitive brain that just wants to keep me safe and comfortable. Every time I prepare for a Facebook Live, I get uncomfortable. And every time I put myself out there, I feel uncomfortable. But when I do it and I learn the lessons from not winning the race, but putting myself in there, letting it all unfold. So as we're getting to the end of my session here today, again, I wanted to say to you, what is your 90-day goal? I'm going to challenge each one of you that is here today to have a 90-day goal. And put it in the comments box and share it with me and let me know what that is. So for me, my new 90-day goal that I'm going to embark on, that I'm preparing for, is to put on some muscle. And it's going to challenge me in all kinds of ways. The biokineticist said to me that an aging body loses its muscle, and an aging brain also needs muscle. So I need to go and put on at least 2 kilograms of muscle. I've lost a lot of weight in this last year, particularly, and I'm feeling good in my body and I'm feeling strong, but I know I can be better, that my muscle strength is still not where it needs to be, and I need to push it beyond here. I need to go and do some weights And that is a huge stretch for me, because the mind talk and the discomfort of and the boredom that I envision of doing weights from my past experience is something I'm going to need to overcome. But I know in 90 days, I will have put on more than 2 kilograms of muscle. I might not have put on 2 kilograms of muscle. Maybe I've put on more. But I know that who I will be becoming in every day, doing what I need to do, doing the strength training, doing the cardio, continuing with my meal, eating in a specific way. I know that will, I'm going to track it for myself, and I'm going to get my lessons, and I'm going to learn more about myself. And the person I'm going to be is not just 2 kilograms of muscle more. It's going to be a change within me, of an overcoming. And that is why we set goals. That's why we set continual little goals, and we dream about where we want to go and what we want to do, so that we can keep on evolving our brain. One of the things about putting on muscle is that it stimulates your human growth hormone, which by me has come quite down, so we need to up it. It's what keeps us into anti-aging, it's what keeps us vital, it's what keeps the brain young. The brain loves to learn new things, but it also loves to keep us in comfort. So we need to direct our brains, and we do it one step at a time. We start where we are, and along the way, I promise you, we start finding our purpose as we tune in more and more into self-awareness. What are our gifts? How are we sharing them with other people? And I'm going to just in closure say that a happy brain is a growing brain. And my favorite song at the moment is a song called Enter One. And in that song is a lyric that says, I want to be shameless like the sun. And I love that, because I want to radiate like the sun. The sun doesn't decide it's not going to shine on this one, it's not going to warm. It just brings light and it brings warmth. And I want my heart to be filled with warmth and light like the sun, and shine shamelessly on everybody that I encounter. That is one of my goals, and I want to do that by strengthening by overcoming my discomforts, but keep on growing, keep on pushing myself just a little bit more. So who wants to be shameless like the sun? Oh, I just love that lyric. So tell me all the things, what you want to do, where you're at, and let me see who's here today. Oh, wow, I love this one. My 90-day goal is to put our workshop online. Yes. And oh, Lucy, are we going to be redundant then? Oh, no, we're going to need to evolve, Lucy. We're going to need to up our game. You just see, I'm just going through, so many beautiful comments here. And Lynn saying that only since being alcohol-free have I discovered how healing it can be to feel. Oh my gosh. When we feel all the feels, it can be so invigorating. It's in our feelings that we feel our aliveness. Oh, Flick, I'm so happy that thank you that you like the analogies. Yeah. The effort is so worth it. And it's really, yes, Lucy, so the benefit isn't achieving. It's really who we're becoming while we achieve. And, yep, the effort will release our happy chemicals. Gosh, I know that Janet's going to have a beautiful podcast next Thursday coming up about that, of how effort and how we create our happy chemicals, and how our thoughts of being dopamine deficient is not necessarily true. We are all needing to create our dopamine through effort. And I'm looking so forward to that podcast. Yeah. Start where you are and enjoy the journey. Absolutely. And I see Jess is here. Oh my gosh, it's so many beautiful posts here. Okay, so Flick saying that her 90-day goal is making my choice muscle stronger than ever. Okay, share more. What are you going to do to make your choice muscle stronger? How are you going to create the strength for it? What are you going to choose every day? Yeah. And Lucy is going to improve her diet. Fantastic. And Jess is saying that she's watching and doing a newfound tool, crocheting. It's been so helpful in helping me cope with my uncomfortables. Having a toolbox is so important. I love that, Jess. And it's really, our toolbox is our lake. That's how we dilute the salt sometimes when things get so hard. I love that. I love that you crocheting. Oh, my English sometimes is not so good. And of course, I'm loving Janet's goal, and I'm loving what that's going to mean for Lucy and me and Nick. Oh, and Flick saying that she wants to reduce her belly muscle. Yes, strengthen the core. Come on, Flick. You're going to do some weights, you're going to put on some muscle. Yeah. And Lynn is saying her 90-day goal is to exercise 3 times a week. And I want you to make it quite specific. To exercise 3 times a week, what exercises are you going to do? How long are you going to do them for? And what is this going to give you? So exercising 3 times a week. Oh, it's going to give you a beautiful, maybe it's going to be just to manage your mind, and just have that in your back pocket. And Ross is saying her 90-day goal is to be braver and to be herself and true to herself. When we have that goal of just being authentic and showing up for ourselves, setting boundaries, it takes so much courage and bravery, and it's so uncomfortable to do that initially. But when we say yes when we mean yes, and we say no when we mean no, it's a beautiful goal, Roz. And Lucy wants to be shameless like the sun. Oh, I love you guys. Thank you everybody for here, for what you're sharing. And Tessa wants to make a happy space for herself to retreat and spend some quiet time and reflect without family members. Oh yes, I love it. I love that, Tessa. It's a beautiful goal. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here this morning and for all these beautiful comments. I'm still seeing them coming, and my heart is really shining shamelessly like the sun today. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, or maybe later at the Zoom Cafe. Who's joining? Bye.